Okay, folks, get out your popcorn because the state of Idaho versus Brian Koberger pretrial maneuvering is ramping up. Ann Taylor just put out a new filing today responding to the filings that the prosecution put out the other day. And in this, she's pulling no punches, saying that Latah County is biased. She also contradicts herself and insinuates that the prosecution is lying. So let's take a look. So here is the filing, and it's the reply in support of motion to rescind order for failure to provide due process. Because as we know, the prosecution had filed a motion to stop those surveys from going out in preparation for the change of venue hearing, and Judge did issue a temporary halt until there's a hearing, which is scheduled for this Thursday. And then the prosecution put out some more filings in support of why those surveys shouldn't be allowed to go forward, basically saying that they are violating the non-dissemination order. So in Ann's new filing, she states that the state knew by March 11th that the survey was being conducted by a legitimate company. Yes, however, the state has said that that wasn't their concern. Had nothing to do with whether it was a legitimate company or whether the surveys were legitimate. They said in their filing that their concern was not about the surveys being done. It was about the questions on the survey and how they felt things were violating the non-dissemination order. So then she talks about how the defense had explained the basis and validity of the survey. Yet, Friday afternoon, the state filed a motion alleging violation of the revised non-dissemination order. She says this was the first mention the state made of such an allegation. The afternoon filing on March 22nd, 2024 was done with the intention of obtaining an immediate order without a hearing. Let's go back for a second, because she says this was the first mention the state made of such an allegation. Well, let's look at one of Ann's other filings. So here's the filing, and that was her motion to rescind the order, okay? So if we scroll down, you will see right here. She said, counsel asked the state to refrain from giving the attachments to the court prior to a meeting where the defense could be heard. Oh, well, that seems that you knew that the state was going to object. And what were those documents that the state was going to give the judge? Oh, it was about the non-dissemination order, because let's look at the state's filing. Right here in the state filing, they said they expressed concerns to Ms. Taylor regarding the nature of the calls and that the fact that the calls were affirmatively sharing purportedly factual information. So this document explains that the state expressed to her concern about it violating the non-dissemination order. So which is it, Ann? Did the state tell you their concerns? And that's why you asked them to hold off going to the judge? Or did they not tell you their concerns and they're lying in their filings when they said that they told you? Either you're not being truthful or the state's not being truthful. I guess we will find out at the hearing on Thursday. But I thought that was interesting that you're acting like you didn't know they had concerns when you also admitted in your own filing that you asked them not to go to the judge. Now, let's go back to the filing that Ann just put in. So we talked about her claiming that she didn't know that the state was concerned about the non-dissemination order. But now she also goes on to claim that they're trying to purposely violate Koberger's due process rights. So she says, of note, due to the bias and interconnectivity of Latah County, citizens called police and the prosecutor about the survey. The ability of a prosecutor to have an order signed by a judge within the same building within a few hours of filing, and a specific fear the defense had articulated to the state during the March 21st, 2024 meeting is evidence of the state's intention to facilitate a due process violation. Oh, look, she just admitted that she knew that the prosecution had concerns because she said the specific fear the defense had articulated to the state. Okay, Ann, you can't have it both ways. You admit that the state told you that they felt it was a violation of the non-dissemination order. But also, you still can't sit there and claim that his due process rights are being violated, because the motion process is the correct process for this, because the judge, he may not have put a temporary halt to it. But he did put a temporary halt, but that's pending a hearing. That hearing is this Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Brian Kohberger will be heard. His side will be heard during that hearing. So she goes on to talk about the Fourth Amendment, and then brings up the case that the state pointed out, State versus Head. And she's trying to claim that State versus Head doesn't mean what the state says, but right in there it says that the defendant in that case had a right to be heard to respond to the civil proceedings given multiple hearings. Well, guess what? Brian Kohberger is being given a hearing this Thursday. Okay, now let's look at the very last part of Anne's filing. She pulls no punches. She just comes right out and says that Latah County is biased. So she says Mr. Kohberger's life and liberty are at stake. This is a capital case, and he is entitled to be heard on the motions pending before the court. Halting preparations for his motion for a change of venue denies his constitutional right to a fair trial. Well, we already talked about that part because there's a hearing, so his due process rights aren't being violated. But then she goes on to say the survey work is complete for Latah County, and it shows that the jury pool in Latah County is biased. Well, we know that Anne loves to use filings to get around the gag order and other little procedural rules, and she just throws this right out there without us being able to see those surveys to make a conclusion for ourselves. So she's planting that out there in the head of prospective jurors that, oh, Latah County's biased. Oh, we need to get this thing moved. And oh, if I'm in this other county, it might get moved to. Oh boy, I better watch out because they're trying to railroad this guy. I mean, that's exactly what she's going for. And that's her job as a defense attorney. But she just tosses these little darts out there, knowing that there's nothing that can back it up at the moment. We just have to take her word for it. So hopefully during the hearing, we will get to actually hear whether they found proof of biasness or not. I guess that's probably going to be coming during the change of venue hearing and not the one on Thursday. Thursday's just going to be more about whether this violated the non-dissemination order. But yeah, I mean, you got to love her. She knows what she's doing. She's good at her job, but it's just frustrating watching all this maneuvering because all they're doing is they are playing with the jury pool. And she talks about how this is his life on the line. Yes, it is. But it feels like such a dangerous game when you throw these little darts out there with no context behind them. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on Thursday. And also there was a motion to allow a Zoom conference call during the hearing for the expert that's going to testify about the surveys. So yep, like I said, get out your popcorn, folks, because this is just heating up.